AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
That's right.
Hour 2, off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. I'm Matt.
This is Shaq O'Neal, and I hate Matt.
Paul O'Neal.
They're chanting Paul O'Neal's name.
You so. And Mr. Toby Tomplay. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there, make it a good one. Dan Graca will be here in 15 minutes. He covers the Jets up there at ESPN New York. Also, the Jets pre- and post-game host. Billy Liucci, bottom of this hour, will preview Aggies and Hurricanes in the college football playoff. Another day brought 2 more LSU Tigers declaring their intention to enter the transfer portal. Former 5-star offensive lineman Carius Kern and quarterback Colin Hurley, which is where I want to focus right now, because LSU really is in a bind numbers-wise at quarterback. I don't necessarily think that Hurley entering the portal is surprising, but now that it is happening, it's worth discussing because it really puts you, just from a numbers perspective, in a really bad spot. Let's kind of look at Hurley's time at LSU, which is a tenure that's probably been defined more by his time off the field than his time on it. Remember, Colin Hurley was one of these prodigies, right? He was a guy who was such a dynamic young player. He reclassified, as mature a young guy as we've ever spoken to on this show. So he graduated a year and a half early. He showed up at LSU in January of 2024 as a 16-year-old. He redshirted a season ago in 2024, backing up Nussmeier and Ricky Collins. And then right after the bowl game, as we know, he was involved in that scary auto accident. And, a lot of that, I think, we knew that he took some time away. I don't think people necessarily knew just how severe that was. Seth Wickersham, who wrote a book called American Kings. It was about quarterbacks, and Colin Hurley was featured in that book. Seth Wickersham came on this show at the time the book was released, and he spent a lot of time with the Hurley family, kind of talked about that accident and the recovery.
I went down to Baton Rouge and I was with him in the ICU. I was with him in recovery, and that's a dangerous path that he was on. I'm glad that it looks like he's going to come out okay with it, but he was in an induced coma for days, and I think it was pretty clear early on that he was going to live. And that was a question at the immediate moment, but then it was like, what kind of life is he going to have? Is he ever going to play football again? What if he can't? There's some stuff in the book on there, some painful moments that I witnessed, but he did a remarkable job of retraining himself and his body to do the things that once came naturally. Thankfully he's not only recovered as a human, which wasn't clear that he would at a time, but he has, recovered as a football player, and he is, out there doing what he loves with a very new appreciation for it.
So think about how dramatic that is to hear that. I mean, he was in a medically induced coma. They weren't sure if he would live a normal life, let alone play football. So just the fact that he was back was incredible. But then he comes back, and then we saw when LSU went to Alabama, Emil Picarella made the travel roster, and Colin Hurley didn't make the trip. And then Frank Wilson the next week explained why.
He took a leave of personal related matters. It is temporary right now at this time.
Temporary at that time. That was, again, after the Alabama game. But as we know, Hurley never returned to the team, hasn't returned, and now is entering the transfer portal. So, as you look at it, it's another reminder of the challenges of trying to hit on a high school quarterback signee. But it's also a reminder of how tenuous LSU's situation is at quarterback because of the numbers. So I know that the Texas Bowl isn't at or near the top of anybody's give a darn list, but the game is coming up here in 10 days. And I don't think we anticipated they were going to have Hurley, but you'll have Michael Van Buren. Juwan Johnson, who's entering the portal, has said he will play the game. He said on the show earlier this week that he will play in the bowl game. So you'll have Johnson available. And then Emil Picarella. And, Emil is an interesting one. We've talked about him before. He's a guy from U-High here in Baton Rouge. But Emil, early in his recruitment, at one point was a top 10 quarterback in the country for the class of 2025. And as he made his way, through his offseason and his senior year, the star rating and the ranking and all that stuff dropped. And he became a 3-star, and he had preferred walk-on opportunities. He had G5 scholarship offers, but he accepted a preferred walk-on at LSU because he wanted to play at LSU. His family all went to LSU. It's his dream school. So a guy that could have gone, taken an NIL deal, and started at a smaller school said, no, I'd rather just walk on at LSU and be part of the team. So Emil is an option there. So it'll be an interesting thing to see what Emil's path may be at LSU moving forward. But is an option. So you've at least got 3 guys that have been with the team and have played quarterback for the bowl game, but really everybody's attention is going to move forward to 2026. And those numbers are the most concerning because I don't know that anybody today could look at Michael Van Buren and say, yep, you're the guy. You're the odds-on favorite to be the starter. I think it's actually the opposite. If you think back to the last month with Garrett Nussmeier missing these the final month of the season, I would suggest that maybe the blessing in disguise is it allowed you these opportunities to get Michael Van Buren these starts. And while it hasn't gone well, at least you have this sample size, you have these data points from Van Buren to say, okay, we saw what that looks like and it ain't good. You got to go get other options for next year. Because if you had gone through this year with Van Buren not playing, if Nuss had played the entire season and Van Buren had not played, you could very well be going into this offseason going, there's our guy. We saw him play 8 games a year ago at Mississippi State. Bad team, true freshman, sat this year, learned, grew, developed, ready for a big opportunity next year, and then maybe you're not as aggressive in the portal because you have Van Buren here. Because you've seen it over the last month and how at times ugly it has been. I mean, he scored 13 points against Western Kentucky. It's a bad Conference USA defense. He scored 13 points. We watched the Oklahoma game. So you have to be aggressive. Now, I think the biggest question remaining is Van Buren even back? And I don't know. I mean, if Lane Kiffin's going into the portal, which he will, of course, to go find a starter, I don't know if Van Buren's back because Van Buren came here with the understanding he was going to sit in 25 behind Nussmeier with the likelihood of being the starter in 26. Well, now I don't think anybody thinks he's going to be the starter in 26. So does Van Buren leave? And if he does, then you have no scholarship quarterbacks on your roster. 0. You didn't sign one here in this class. There's none really available to sign in February. So we've seen LSU go get backups in the portal before. Van Buren's one of them. They did it with A.J. Swan as well, brought him in from Vanderbilt. And Swan came here knowing he wasn't going to be the starter. He was coming in to be a backup. So there are going to be those options in the portal, but you're going to have to get at least 2. At least 2 in the portal, and maybe try to find another body somewhere else. Unless if you look at 2 portal guys and then Picarella as your third and you're content moving forward with them. But it is going to be a really tricky situation to navigate here for Lane Kiffin in this portal cycle. Because, look, he did it a year ago with Chambliss. They had Jackson Dart was gone. They had Austin Simmons ready to take that step, and they went and got Chambliss to have a veteran guy from Division II who's going to be their depth piece. So they can find that guy. They can find that depth piece. But you're going to have to get at least 2 in this portal cycle if you're Lane Kiffin. With Colin Hurley now, we know, entering the portal, his time at LSU ends without ever taking a significant snap and certainly being defined more by his time and things that happen away from the field instead of on it. Wish him well in whatever is next. All right, it's after further review We're brought to you by Arco Power Systems, arco.com, A-R-C-C-O, arco.com, arco.com. Fantastic company, impressive company. Home base right here in Baton Rouge on Airline Highway near I-12. But they service companies and businesses all over this region. I mean, they got an office in Little Rock, Mobile, San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Dallas, all over Louisiana. The simplest way I can say it is, if you own a business, what happens when the power goes out at your business? Well, you got to have a backup energy solution. That's Arco. This is Generac industrial generator power. Everything's turnkey. They can install a generator. They can rent you a generator. They can service your generator. It's Arco. A-R-C-C-O. A-R-C-C-O. Arco.com. Arco.com. All right, y'all, it is After Further Review. Thanks for hanging out with us here. Billy Liucci, bottom of this hour. We'll preview Texas A&M, Miami, and the college football playoff. When we come back, though, we're heading up to New York City. Dan Graca is going to be here, Jets pre- and post-game host. We'll get a thumbnail preview of Aaron Glenn's team as they come down to the Dome for Saints-Jets on Sunday. It's AFR.
AFR.
Little bit of a warm-up today, thankfully. It's 63 degrees. Those temps in the 20s were not anything I was really looking forward to, but you do know that it's only a matter of time before the cold temps, the freezing temps come back, and you're cranking up that heater again. If you've not yet had your heater safety check, it's not too late. You can call River City's 1 Hour Air, 752-0001, 752-0001. Have our friends at River City's 1 Hour Air come out, make sure that your heater is clean, tuned up, efficient, and safe for these cold weather months. Katie Leak did that. She left this 5-star Google review. Nothing but great things to say about Steven, the technician. Thorough, kind, and seemed to carry himself with excellence. Really thankful. How often do you read reviews like that about an HVAC technician? Well, if you're reading reviews from River City's 1 Hour Air, you read them all the time. 752-0001, where they're always on time or you don't pay a dime.
After Further Review, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com. Who dat say they're gonna beat them Saints? Let's head behind enemy lines to preview this week's matchup.
Saints look to make it 3 in a row. Got the Reeling Jets coming in. Dan Graca, ESPN New York. Also pre and post for the Jets. Good enough to hang out for a couple of minutes. Hey, Dan, we appreciate the time. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good, man. How's things?
Saints have managed to win a couple of games, so actually it doesn't suck. But anyway.
Yeah, they have. They've played some good football of late. Certainly, I'm watching from afar here, and 3 division wins in the last 5 weeks doesn't hurt anybody, right?
Yeah, they've won 3 of their last 5, 3 out of 6 with Tyler Shucks starting, so there's a lot of reason for optimism. I'm not sure it's the same with the Jets, but getting a look at Brady Cook, they'll start him again this week. Can you kind of just explain why Aaron Glenn made the decision to go with Cook?
I got to be honest with you. I think it's the right decision. And I know that the last couple of weeks that Brady Cook has played, you sit there and you look at the final score and you say, okay, like, what am I missing? But you got to be realistic. It's about the future for the New York Jets. And I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you on the fact that Brady Cook is the long-term answer at the quarterback position. But what I can tell you is Tyrod Taylor and Justin Fields are not. There's no guarantee those guys are even on the team next year. Tyrod's a free agent, and Justin Fields, given how his season is kind of gone, there's no guarantee that he's going to be back in the fold next year. So you might as well see what you have in Brady Cook. I mean, Brady Cook could be a long-term solution maybe at the backup quarterback position. And 3 weeks left in the season, you're not playing for anything significant. You might as well give the kid the reps, give him the opportunity, and see if maybe you have a diamond in the rough in some capacity as an undrafted free agent. Because the fact of the matter is, Matt, you look at the scores the last 2 games and, 2 lopsided defeats to the Miami Dolphins and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Normally, when you have a undrafted free agent rookie quarterback starting, you could say, well, that's the reason we lost. It really wasn't Brady Cook the main culprit. It was the fact that the defense just could not get off the field and has been struggling mightily, and that's what led to the change of defensive coordinator this week.
Jets are 30th in the NFL in scoring defense. So you mentioned Steve Wilks fired. Dan, is he the fall guy, or was the defense bad? Because is it his fault the defense is bad?
I mean, certainly when you're the coordinator, and Aaron Glenn let him run the show defensively. Okay. Like this is not the Aaron Glenn system that he ran with the Detroit Lions for the past few years when he was the coordinator there. He got out of the way. They said during the offseason that this was going to be like a blend of Glenn's system and Wilks' system, but I think it ended up skewing more towards Wilks. and he gave him the autonomy with the defense, and it just didn't work. I mean, yes, I know that the Jets traded away two of their best defensive players in Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, but, I mean, you watch these games, you got guys running wide open in the secondary. I mean, it seems like all season long, and, it didn't seem like there were many strategic adjustments made throughout the course of games. I mean, I'll just give you an example the last 2 weeks here alone. I mean, both games, they're down 21-0 before you're in your seat. Touchdowns on the first three possessions from the opposing offenses. You guys played the Dolphins a few weeks ago, and you played them a lot more competitive than what we saw from the Jets last week. And, hey, I was led to believe the Dolphins couldn't play and Tua Tagovailoa couldn't play in cold weather. He just got benched today. He had no problem slinging the ball around in 40 degrees at the Meadowlands a couple of weeks ago. And last week, I mean, my goodness, they made Trevor Lawrence look like the second coming that we all thought that he was going to be when he was coming into the NFL draft in 2021. That was probably the best game that Trevor Lawrence played as a pro, and I think the Jet defense had a lot to do with that.
The hair kind of makes him look like the second coming also. Kind of a dead ringer.
Yeah.
If you go for like the light skin with the dark hair, I mean, it does have a Jesus vibe. Around Christmas,
a little bit.
I'm here for it. Dan Graca is with us, ESPN New York Jets pre- and post-game host as well. Hey, I'm glad you brought up Glenn. Look, people here love Aaron Glenn. I mean, he was a longtime Saints assistant before he went to Detroit as the DC. A lot of people here wanted him to be the head coach. He ultimately picked the Jets instead. Give me just a thumbnail here through 14 games of the Glenn tenure. How the record stinks, obviously, but it's not like he inherited a great situation. But how's it going so far with Aaron Glenn?
I think patience is the operative word. And I think that fans were asked to be patient. I mean, look, if you're a Jet fan, you don't know any other word because you haven't been in the playoffs in 15 years. You haven't had a winning season in 10. So you're like, what's another year of, struggling? But I think next year you hope that you're going to start to see the foundation and the payoff a little bit start to produce some results. I think you're going to have to. And, Aaron Glenn, they've given him a tremendous amount of authority with this program. I mean, he essentially is the one running the show. He's got the final say. But they were going to turn things over this year. They said goodbye to some veterans. They turned over the roster. They're bringing in players that, fit his mold, if you will. Remember, they traded away guys that are considered young players that were signed to contract extensions by the previous regime, the Quinnen Williams, Michael Carter II, the nickelback. And then this current regime, locked up Sauce Gardner over the summer only to turn around and trade him a couple of months later because the value was too good to pass up here. So they're doing it his way. But, if you don't have a quarterback, first and foremost, it's going to be tough to win games long term. And ultimately, Aaron Glenn's tenure with the Jets and Darren Muji, the GM, it's going to be defined by will they or won't they find that long-term solution at quarterback.
Yeah. A couple more as we sort of turn the page to Sunday in the Superdome. Dan, is there anything offensively that you look at and say, and the Saints have actually been really good the last 5 games defensively, is there anything you look at offensively with the Jets and say, okay, that could be a problem for New Orleans in the Dome on Sunday?
Well, I think it depends if they can get the run game going, right? Because, I mean, they came into this season, Aaron Glenn and the first-year OC, Tanner Engstrand, they wanted to run the football. They wanted to play smash-mouth football. They know they weren't blessed with having a bunch of game-breaking weapons on offense. Garrett Wilson was essentially the only guy at the wide receiver position. You had a quarterback that you went into the year with in Justin Fields, who was a dual-threat player, can also make plays with his legs, and they committed to the run game. But now with all the injuries and everything that's happened, you have an undrafted free agent starting at quarterback. So the last couple of weeks, the opposing defenses have stacked the box considerably, and the Jets have had very little to no running room getting anything going on the ground. So Breece Hall's life has been made difficult with the run game. The thing that you take some encouragement in is that, 2 of the wide receivers that they acquired at the mid-season trades, John Mechie from the Philadelphia Eagles, the former Alabama standout, and Adonai Mitchell from the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, those guys have shown some ability here for the handful of games that they've played. And this is playing with, revolving door at the quarterback position. Garrett Wilson's probably not going to be out there this week. I'd be shocked if we see Garrett Wilson the rest of the season, given the time he's missed. So it's far from a complete offense here, but I think the Jets' success and ultimately what Brady Cook's success is going to be this Sunday really goes back to the ability to run the football. If they can run the football, it'll free things up for the quarterback to maybe make some plays down the field, open up the play-action game, which I think would help him considerably.
What about Mason Taylor?
Mason Taylor's been ruled out of the game already this week,
oh, wow,
which,
okay.
I guess a couple of weeks ago in that Dolphin game, he suffered a neck injury, and he missed last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's not going to play this week. I hope that it's not a season-ending thing, because obviously when you're 3-11 and you're playing out the strings, some guys with bumps and bruises, they just say, hey, this guy's a part of our future. Let's exercise caution. Let's not rush him back out there. I really hope that we get to see Mason Taylor at least the last couple of games of the season because, he's somebody that I think has a lot of ability, and he's shown you some good things. You guys know down there,
yep.
Him being an LSU Tiger. But I think with all the changes this year on offense, the quarterback situation, I don't think we saw the best of what Mason Taylor's skill sets are going to be able to provide for this offense. So the more reps, the better. But next year, I'm really expecting some good things in year number 2 from him. We like him a lot.
Dan Graca, ESPN New York, Jets pre and post. It'll be the Saints and the Jets Sunday in the Dome. Last thing, if the Jets do come down and pull the Saints are a slight favorite. If the Jets come down and pull the upset, what does that blueprint look like, Dan?
The blueprint is going to be what we touched on offensively. Defensively, they're going to have to get some heat on the quarterback. And we've seen Tyler Shuck make some plays with his legs. Remember, he had the 2 rushing touchdowns in the game in Tampa Bay in the rain a couple of weeks ago there. They just haven't been able to generate any pressure on the quarterback. The last 5 games, I think they have a total of 5 sacks. So the opposing quarterbacks are just way too comfortable back there. And that was also one of the things you could point to with the Steve Wilks scheme is that even when they would bring the heat and blitz, it wasn't really anything that I think would throw off the opposing offense to confuse them. It was pretty easy to diagnose. So they're going to have to find a way to get pressure on Tyler Shuck. If not, he could be standing back there and picking apart that secondary, which we've seen too many quarterbacks do here this year, unfortunately.
Saints and Jets Sunday in the Dome. First time in 4 years. These teams will tangle. See how it goes down with a couple teams with rookie head coaches trying to finish strong. Dan Graca, ESPN New York. Appreciate the time, man. Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Same to you guys. I'm looking forward to the nice weather down in New Orleans this weekend, making the trip. So hopefully that'll be fun.
I hope it cooperates, Dan, because we had temps in the 20s earlier this week. So hopefully it's 63 right now. So hopefully the warm up stays for you, man. Thank you.
Well, last Sunday woke up to a snowstorm in New York when we were getting ready to play down in Florida. So this time of year, unfortunately, we're hoping for the best.
Thanks, man. We appreciate it, Dan.
Be good.
All right, that's Dan Graca from ESPN New York. Jets pre and post. Hopefully the weather cooperates this weekend. I mean, the game will be in the Dome, so that'll be good. We're brought to you by Relief Windows and ReliefWindows.com. Windows, doors, siding. Oh, yeah. They do shutters, too. Relief Windows and ReliefWindows.com. Hey, listen, as you maybe head toward the holidays, maybe get a little time off, you're spending more time around your home, maybe it's time to look at what needs some upgrading as we turn the calendar to 2026. Maybe it's your windows. Maybe it's a beautiful entry door. Hardy plank vinyl siding, things that can make your home more energy efficient. Beautify the exterior of your home. Increase your home's resale value. And remember, at Relief Windows, you get a true lifetime transferable warranty on labor, material, and glass breakage. So you do this once, and you're done forever. If you're building a home, tell your contractor you want them to use Relief Windows. So when you install windows at the build, you're done forever. It's Relief Windows. Relief Windows and ReliefWindows.com. All right, let's after further review. Hump Day Show is brought to you by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Russ Mitchell in 1 hour. We'll talk to Russ about the Heisman. Of course, he is a Heisman voter, so he'll reveal his ballot. We'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll preview the college football playoff games with Russ coming up in 1 hour from right now. When we come back, we've done it the past couple of days. We looked at Alabama. We looked at Oklahoma. Come back, our buddy Billy Liucci from Tex Aggies will be here. We'll preview Texas A&M against Miami from College Station. That's next on AFR.
AFR.
Y'all check out Glow Resources. If you're a business owner or if you're the HR manager, hiring manager, the VP, the operations manager, if you're the person in charge of hiring at your business, you need to know Glow Resources. Because at Glow Resources, they specialize in finding you the right people to make your business the most efficient it can be. Now, they specialize in skilled blue-collar labor. So, no, if you've got that giant project coming up and you're looking for welders or pipe fitters or crane operators or whatever it may be, that heavy machinery operators, Glow Resources can find qualified people who meet the specifications, the skill set required to do the job right, and who are going to be reliable people. It's Glow Resources. They also have their professional placement division. So any type of office job, from office managers to the C-suite, you want Glow Resources. GLO, glowresources.com.
After further review, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
Our college football playoff is this weekend. The first round, Texas A&M will host Miami. Our buddy Billy Liucci, TexAgs.com, good enough to join us for a couple of minutes, give us a preview of it. Yo, man, how are you?
Doing good, Matty. How are you, buddy?
Man, I'm doing really well. Looking forward to some downtime here around the holidays. I don't imagine that it will be calm at all in College Station this weekend. Give us a vibe check, man, here in year 200 Elko to be in the playoff and to be hosting a game at Kyle Field this weekend.
Pretty incredible. I mean, I didn't have it on the bingo card. I think I was kind of thinking, honestly, high end this year to me was looking at that schedule before the season. You know how it changes as the season goes on, but looking at it, I think I was a game above most people at 9-3. Some people I saw at 7-5, but I thought they were going to make a jump, but I thought the schedule was going to kind of mitigate that jump a little bit. So I thought, who knows, maybe a 9-3 SEC team could get in the playoff this year as a fifth team. So that was kind of what I was thinking as the target in my eyes. But 11-1, never would have seen that coming. The jump they made, individual players, I think Colin Klein as an OC, Marcel Reed, and just the program in general to go from 8-4 to 11-1 was completely unexpected. But you did expect this program to improve under Elko, and yeah, there's a definite sense of excitement, not just for right now, but for where the program's headed in the next few years under him in terms of just kind of keeping this thing going.
I'm glad you brought up Colin Klein because it is one of the interesting storylines in this play for so many coaches that are going to be leaving for head coaching jobs. Klein's going to go be the head coach at Kansas State, but he will coach the Aggies throughout the playoff. Billy, how's that working with Klein just functionally doing two jobs at once?
All right, now it's fine. I think, you've got 3 weeks to get ready for a football game when normally you've got, several days. So I think that part is fine. I think where you potentially run into an issue with people like Klein and Will Stein and some of these coordinators that are going to be moving, I think where you run into the issue is later in the playoff because, that transfer portal opens, January 2nd?
Yeah.
So you've got coaches sitting there working at one school, about to take over as a head coach somewhere else. As we all know, there's a lot of prep that goes into that. I think you can manage putting together a coaching staff and things like that and game planning for a team in 3 weeks. I think it's beyond that as you approach, like if A&M or Oregon's going to win, no offense to the
Dukes
folks in New Orleans. Yeah, I mean the Dukes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Tulane and Ole Miss. But yeah, Oregon's going to win. So if A&M beats Miami, you're playing right before that date starts. And I think then it starts to get a little more distracting. And then obviously as you go on. So I think for this one, it's fine.
Okay. Billy Liucci, TexAgs, is here. When I look at A&M, Billy, if there is a devil's advocate point of view about A&M, it's, okay, well, they went 11-1, but you draw a line in the conference standings and all the teams they beat are on the lower half of the conference, and then they lose to Texas the way they did. So do you call into question their ability to compete against better teams? What would be your rebuttal to that doubt that maybe that Texas game cast on this Aggie team?
My rebuttal, first of all, I think it's more than just the Texas game. I think you have to go and say Texas game and that first half against South Carolina. Those are the last two SEC games. So I think that's a fair concern. And I think A&M dropped probably spotted too low than they should have. This whole schedule thing to me was stupid all year. I honestly, it sounds crazy. I think it's because people are
Hey, Billy, hang on one second. Muse, hang up. Billy, we're going to dial you right back. We just got you in a bad spot. Hang on. We're going to call you right back. I don't know what's going on with the cell phone, but we'll get Billy right back because I want that point because I think That's really important. You started to talk about Texas and then also the first half against South Carolina. So I don't want to lose that point. We'll get to that. I'll get some thoughts on this matchup with A&M in Miami. Good opportunity to remind you about Evermore, EVAMOR, Evermore.com, Evermore.com. Drink Evermore, healthier, alternative, natural, artesian water, and a Louisiana product available at great local retailers. Ask for it by name whenever you go into your grocery store, your convenience store, EVAMOR, Evermore.com, Evermore.com. And as always, if you can't find it at a local retailer, you can always find it online at evermore.com. You can shop online, or you can find the store nearest you that has it. Go to EVAMOR, Evermore.com, Evermore.com. Okay, we got Billy back. Sorry about that, Billy. All right, so you were saying it was just Texas. It was the first half against South Carolina when they got down 27, and then we sort of lost you there. So if you would pick up there, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I just think, there's a legitimate concern there in terms of, as A&M, have they lost that wave they were riding right through Baton Rouge? And I think even a couple weeks later at Missouri, that didn't come easy, but the 21-point, 17, 21-point win on the road in Columbia. They just haven't, for two games, they hadn't played that well. Then you make Samford in between, so you just wonder how much momentum they've got. But the reality, too, Matt, is that I don't think people are saying is the other two halves of those games, the Aggies are up 10-3 against Texas at halftime. They've held the Longhorns to a field goal in the first half on the road. And then that second half against South Carolina, they outscore them 28-0. So it's not like it's just been bad football. The reality is they had a bad half in Austin in the second half of that game and still were a 3-point game with, 5 or 6 minutes left to go. So I think people overreacted, but I do think there are concerns because you have 5 turnovers by Marcel in the last 2 SEC games, and you had, I think, 2 really good halves of football and 2 bad ones. So it's like, does this break help? A&M needed to get healthy. The receivers were all battling sprained ankles down the stretch, and then, do you get Le'Veon Moss back on Saturday?
Yeah, could you dig a little deeper there, Billy? That was the next thing I wanted to ask was about the time off and what were the Moss is one I think, of course, Baton Rouge guy everybody here is aware of, but the injury situation for A&M going into this game, any notable absences or guys worth watching?
I don't think there's going to be any notable absences. The question will be, Bethel Roman seemed to have been the most banged up at the end of that Texas, or it happened during that Texas game. I watched him limping off the field pretty significantly, and then he's practicing right now. But, we had practice video yesterday. He looked a little slowed still, but he was a full go at practice. So the interesting one would be, Craver and Concepcion were kind of just wear and tear of the season. Concepcion kept playing through an ankle. Craver had been slowed for really about a month, even prior to LSU. He'd been dealing with it, and I think it got to him pretty good. Maybe even late in that LSU game. I'm not sure if it was that one or the next one, but he's been dealing with that for a while. And those 2 guys are good to go. They're 100%. They're getting Scooby Williams back, who's been out about 6 weeks. I think maybe the Florida game for him. And then obviously Le'Veon Moss is the big one because, man, Lev, when he left, was on track for felt like one of those 150-plus yard games against Florida, like the one he had, and he went for 140 against Auburn a couple weeks earlier. And he hurt that ankle. I believe he had the tightrope surgery, and they've been holding him back. They've said from day one to me, probably around maybe Texas. That was optimistic. If not, the postseason, if we're fortunate enough to get there. And here we are. And Moss was a full participant in practice yesterday. He's a big deal because no one's really been able to run on Miami this year. And if you look at Texas A&M's numbers, even when they've had to earn it, Matt, Missouri's a game that's a good example. Auburn's a game that's an example. Florida, they were consistently running for 180 yards plus and usually 200 plus as a team. Obviously, they were unable to do that against Texas. South Carolina, they didn't. They fell behind by so much. Part of that's because they couldn't run in the first half. So they don't win this Saturday without establishing something.
and because it takes so much of that pressure off of Marcel and lets him operate on play action and have time to throw, which, when he does that, then also his time to run evolves as well as those DBs get to chasing the receivers. So they have to run the football, in my opinion, and man, it's hard to do without Le'Veon, because I think before he was hurt, he was shaping up to be one of the 2 or 3 best backs in the league.
Yeah. Miami is 6th in America in scoring defense, 13.8 points per game. So, this could be a really interesting defensive matchup with these two teams. Billy, if I asked you, because, look, you've obviously spent 2 weeks now looking up and down and over Miami every which way. What do you think is the matchup, maybe a problem Miami could cause for Texas A&M that you think is the matchup to watch Saturday morning?
I think a lot of it that concerns me is like pressure up the middle, like inside pressure from those interior guys, or any kind of games or twists they do that get Bain and Mesidor rushing between the tackles. What South Carolina and Texas were able to do is get pressure in Marcel's face. That's not just Marcel, that's every quarterback. But him in particular, if he can, like I said earlier, if he can execute off play action. So I worry about Miami stuffing that A&M run game, getting A&M into predictable downs, and getting interior pressure where Marcel, those DNs are scary, but when that's the beauty of having a quarterback like Marcel Reed. And you guys saw it in Baton Rouge. There were plays where the Tigers got pressure. Marcel you saw it for 2 years with Jaden Daniels to the highest degree.
Mm-hmm.
But those guys that can step up and go to the right or left, and all of a sudden everything opens up to run or pass. Marcel's so great at that. If it's coming up between the tackles, that's where he really struggles, I think, in terms of like his timing and vision down the field. A&M doesn't have the biggest set of pass catchers running down that secondary either. So that would be my concern. But I think Miami's got a concern of their own, and it has to do with the I think everywhere you see Miami that's a concern, they have to be the same way about it. Oh, you worried about Bain? Well, you should worry about Cassius Howell. You worried about a big physical O-line? Check. You worried about Malachi Toney? There's a guy named Casey Concepcion that pretty much those two guys do the same thing. You can really go up and down. If you're an Aggie, are you worried about Marcel and ball security? Well, Carson Beck, same pattern for him sometimes. Same thing I said about the pressure. So it's a fascinating game, Matt. I'm having a really hard time picking it. I think it's like a 24-20, 24-21 type of game either way. I think a lot of defense, some offense, because both teams have too many playmakers. But I think it's going to be who can hold in there and stand in against the run better. A&M's going to have to ride this Kyle Field crowd, because I do think it makes them a lot better defensively when they're playing at home.
Line is Aggies 3.5, so you're tap dancing right around it. Boy, that'd be a fun game to watch if it plays out that way. Hopefully we get some really entertaining football this weekend. Billy Liucci, TexAgs.com. You'll give him a follow at Billy Liucci. Appreciate it, man. Merry Christmas to you and yours, all right?
Merry Christmas, Matt. See you guys.
All right, man. We'll see you. It's After Further Review. We're brought to you by the Williamson Eye Center. You can always call 924-2020, 924-2020. You want to see 2020, call 924-2020. Or go to williamsoneye.com. If you're 60 or over and cataracts are making your vision cloudy or dull, you have options. The Williamson Eye Center has a quick vision self-test on their website. So you go do that at williamsoneye.com, williamsoneye.com, and then you can schedule your exam. Give them a call to learn more about the modern cataract and vision correction solution. So no matter your age or your refractive issue, our friends at the Williamson Eye Center have a solution. So schedule that consultation or start there at the website at williamsoneye.com. That's williamsoneye.com for the Williamson Eye Center. Okay, y'all, we'll knock out our final break here of hour number 2. Muse will do Tigers in the Pros. In 15 minutes, I do want to talk about Carius Kern going into the transfer portal. If you missed it, we opened the show today talking about Frank Wilson, heading over to Ole Miss. Hour 2, we opened talking about Colin Hurley going into the portal. We'll open hour 3 talking about Carius Kern. and the future of the LSU offensive lines. That's coming up in a bit, and Russ Mitchell in 30 minutes from right now. Glad you're hanging out. It's a Hump Day edition of AFR presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness.
AFR.
We're brought to you by the Watermark and the Renaissance. Watermark Downtown, Renaissance Southtown. Hey, look, as we start to look ahead to 2026, and you're going to have an event coming up, you got to remember Renaissance Baton Rouge. I'm not sure there's a better place in all of Baton Rouge to host your event than Renaissance Baton Rouge. With 13,000 square feet of meeting space, it is perfect. Their grand ballroom can host 500 people. Maybe you need something quaint and intimate. They have these gorgeous boardrooms where you can have all the technology plugged in. A dozen people, you have all the technology plugged in. They can cater your board meetings as well for a dozen people or anything in between. Allison Crump, the events coordinator, both Renaissance and Watermark, give her a shout. And I love what she says. We're in the business of saying yes. So they can manipulate their space to fit whatever size gathering you have. It's Watermark Downtown and Renaissance Southtown right there on Bluebonnet. Watermark and Renaissance Baton Rouge.
After further review, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
Wrapping up hour number 2. Always appreciate our friends at Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com. Remember, they got everything. ED treatments, hormone replacement therapy. If you are currently on HRT at another clinic, y'all, it is worth looking at. Like, Goodwood has the lowest prices, never any contracts. There are some places I've learned that actually charge membership fees, which is absurd. If you're paying a membership fee at your HRT clinic, stop, switch immediately. I used to be at another clinic. I'm not anymore. I'm at Goodwood. And when you get your blood labs every 6 months, they don't charge you for that. They pick up that cost. So you're going to save money. You're going to get a great experience, great people. Your medicine shipped direct. Yourgoodwood.com. Yourgoodwood.com. Okay. Muso, Tigers in the pros.
Tigers in the pros. They still bleed purple and gold. They're just really rich now.
All right, so on Monday, the Washington Commanders shut Jaden Daniels down for the season. He had his first meeting with the media since then and talked extensively about the injuries. And this year, which he described as, quote, super frustrating, he said he doesn't want to miss any games at all. It's just disappointing. But he did mention that longevity, quote, longevity is a big thing, so you want to be smart with this, end quote. He understands. He will remain on the active roster, so he will be able to practice. He just will not play in any games. Of course, missed 2 games with the sprained knee, and then this extended period of time that he has missed has obviously come off the dislocated elbow. Daniels described both injuries as unavoidable and kind of just freak injuries throughout the game. Hopefully a better and healthier season for JD5 in 2026. Mason Taylor officially out per Aaron Glenn earlier on Wednesday for the Saints game on Sunday. Good news for Ali Gay and the Tennessee Titans. Ali designated from return from IR. Practice today was limited. We'll see if he's on the field for the Titans come Sunday. And Ben told you obviously about Jaden Daniels there. NBA tonight. Sorry, I lost my spot. NBA tonight. You can watch it on NBA TV if you have that. Timberwolves and Naz Reid, they host the Grizzlies. He's the only former Tiger in action in the association tonight, as there's only 2 games. That's Tigers in the Pros.
Presented by Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. It's not too late, y'all. It's not too late. It's not too late, not too late. If you need to buy that perfect gift for him or her on your list, Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Maybe it's that beautiful diamond engagement ring, or maybe it's that necklace, the pendant, watches, bracelets, earrings, everything for him or her. Gents, of course, if you want to thrill her, you can do so with a gift in the red box from Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. You're always going to get the Lee Michaels experience, a great selection, and fair pricing. It's the big differentiator. The big box stores, it tends to be cookie cutter. You go to boutique jewelers, you're going to get a smaller selection and you're going to overpay. You go to Lee Michaels, because they have the buying power of 10 stores, you're going to get an amazing selection and a great price, and always the Lee Michaels experience. LMFJ.com, LMFJ.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Okay, it's After Further Review. Glad you're hanging out with us here. Been a really busy show. If you missed anything, AFR On Demand presented by Brett Golf. We did open the show talking about Frank Wilson going to Ole Miss. It's interesting because, naturally, I think from the Ole Miss side of things, they're looking at Austin Thomas and Frank Wilson, Pete Golding being from Hammond, as that sort of triumvirate being able to build real inroads to recruiting in Louisiana. And I'm sure if the tables were turned, I'd feel the exact same way. I do just look at the way Lane Kiffin has shown how he wants to build a roster, and it's just different. He's going to build with an emphasis on the transfer portal and not recruiting high school kids. I mean, we're about to, right after Sports Center, we're going to talk about Carius Kern. It's a 5-star offensive lineman who's been 1 year in Baton Rouge. Now he's in the portal. You look back at Lance Hurd, a 5-star offensive lineman, 1 year in Baton Rouge, left in the portal. Would you rather the guy that's played 27 career games in the Power Four and is a plug and play? Kiffin would. It's AFR.
AFR.
Had a great time on Tuesday night at the Our Lady of the Lake Christmas party. Just amazing people, and they've been great partners of ours as well. And whenever I talk about Our Lady of the Lake, it's everything from the Franciscan missionaries of Our Lady, of course, the sisters, and their calling with this amazing healthcare system that they built for more than a century. And then all the wonderful doctors and nurses and staff members, people that operate the FMOL health system, of which Our Lady of the Lake is part of, and their great partnership with LSU. I mean, they're synonymous. When you think Our Lady of the Lake, you should think LSU. When you think LSU, you should think Our Lady of the Lake. Of course, we've talked about how Our Lady of the Lake has agreed to be the naming rights partner of the new basketball arena when ultimately that is built. But if it's on the court, in the classroom, all over Louisiana, OLOL.com/.